Hi everyone, I hope you're okay. So today I thought I'd film a Q&A all about my labour, some questions about being a new mum, having a newborn, etc. I asked on Instagram if any of you guys had any questions and you definitely did. So I thought this would be the best way to kind of sit down and chat through my kind of birth story, what happened, rather than like just doing like one really long video. And then also, like I said, there's a few questions about like being a new mom and a new baby and etc. So I thought that I'd do it all in one big video. And I also thought this would be the perfect chance to introduce you to someone very special. So this here is Penelope. She is 1 month old. Aren't you? You 1 month old? Yeah, you are, aren't you? And she is an absolute angel. I gave birth to her on, just over a month ago now. And the past 4 weeks have been an absolute crazy whirlwind. I feel like they have just gone so fast, but I also feel like they have been like a lifetime as well. It's really strange, like people will probably like say this, but I genuinely can't really remember life without her. In fact, even just thinking about being pregnant seems like a really long time ago and I can't really remember it, which is mad because I was only pregnant like 5 weeks ago. But yeah, it's just been an absolute whirlwind, but I just absolutely just love her so much. And I love being a new mum. It's very, very hard. It's very, very tough, don't get me wrong. But it's incredibly rewarding and it's just been absolutely amazing. So this week has been the first week that I have felt like actually trying to get some like work done. So yeah, it's definitely like a struggle, but we're adjusting, aren't we, Poppet? And yeah, I thought I would sit down to film some videos today. And like I said, I asked on Instagram for some questions about labour and birth because I did want to try and do a video where I spoke about it because I've personally found like labour and birth stories to be really useful, mainly after being in labour, to be honest. I didn't watch a lot of them before I went into labour just because I kind of didn't want to scare myself, but I've actually found them a lot more useful afterwards, which I'll kind of explain in a minute. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead just to let you know I am going to be being very honest about everything, and I'm not going to include all the gory details, but there will be some gory details. So just to kind of warn you, I don't want to scare anyone or feel like I'm being a negative Nancy, but at the same time I think it's very important to address that not all labours are perfect, not all labours feel positive, and they don't always go the way that you planned, and that's okay, because I do think that social media, I feel like positive birth stories are brilliant. They were very useful when I was pregnant because I feel like they took away a lot of anxiety, but I also think that they gave me a very high expectation of what labour should be and how I should cope. And when my labour didn't go as well as these positive stories, I came away feeling very shocked and almost like a failure. And I kind of remember saying to my mum a couple of days after giving birth that I felt like it's wrong that I felt like that, and I feel like social media has a lot, you can blame social media for a lot of things, but I do feel like social media did give me a very false expectation of what labour would be like. And yeah, when mine didn't go like that, I felt very strange about the whole situation, and I kind of vowed that I always try to be real and honest, and I always try to say that I try to use my platforms as if you're going for like a coffee with a pal. And I kind of just want to make people feel less alone, because in those days after I gave birth, I kind of scoured the internet for stories of labour and induction, and reading other people's stories and reading about other people's births who'd gone the same way as me, or people who I spoke to over on like Instagram who messaged me to say that they felt very similar after birth, honestly just made me feel so much better. And I felt so much less alone, and I felt less of like a bit of a freak for feeling this way. And I feel 4 weeks on, I'm feeling a lot better about everything. And I just feel like things like this have definitely helped me. So I just also kind of wanted to put a disclaimer though, because if you're pregnant watching this, I wouldn't want to be seen like I'm being, a negative Nancy, or that I'm being like trying to scare people, because I'm not doing that at all. I just want to be real and honest. And something I wish I'd done before birth is that I'd done a bit more research and I hadn't just looked at positive birth stories. I feel like it would have been good to have gone in with a more varied approach, maybe I wouldn't have come out feeling such a failure. But I haven't got a time machine, so I can't go back and do it all again. So yeah, I just wanted to put that as a little disclaimer, if that makes any sense, because I feel like just a load of ramble came out of my mouth there. So this is the first question, and it's, did your birth plan go to plan? I prefer the term birth preferences. And yes, I also prefer the term birth preferences, and my sister-in-law is actually a midwife, and she said to me very early on, do not have a plan, because no birth goes to plan. So birth preferences is definitely a better kind of saying. Yes and no. So I'm going to start a couple of weeks before I actually gave birth. When I was 36/37 weeks pregnant, I was actually diagnosed with gestational diabetes. It's basically the diabetes that you get during pregnancy. This was a real shock to the system, and I found it incredibly anxiety inducing and overwhelming, and I actually couldn't talk about it like much to anyone, and I definitely did not want to talk about it online. I felt really guilty, even though the diabetic team told me till they were blue in the face, you have not caused this, there is nothing that you could have done, it is just hormones, it is just the way that your body is digesting things, and your body's tired. At this point, obviously, I'm heavily pregnant, it's a big old strain on the body, and I think that my body just gotten to the point where it was really struggling to work how it used to, which is how I developed the diabetes. But even though I had all this being said to me and I'd done a lot of research, I still felt like I'd caused this, and I felt so guilty, and I felt like I'd caused a potential threat to my baby. And being pregnant has made me discover that I do not have a healthy relationship with food, and I just completely berated myself for all the stuff that I'd eaten in pregnancy. If you follow me on Instagram, you will know that my biggest craving was chocolate orange, and I won't lie, I ate a lot of chocolate orange during my pregnancy, and I ate a lot more chocolate than what I normally eat, and I felt like I'd completely caused this all myself, and I was just so worried about talking about it online that I would get some stupid Karen come on who didn't know about the condition and say, oh, you caused this yourself, and I was just like, I cannot cope. I was feeling very sensitive. So I got diagnosed with that, which meant that I went from low risk to high risk at the click of a fingers, which was also a bit of a shock to the system, because I'd been just sailing along. I'd had a really easy pregnancy. I hadn't really suffered with many symptoms at all. I mean, sure, I was uncomfortable, I had a bit of heartburn, had a bit of like pelvic pain, but nothing, horrendous. And everything was going really swimmingly. And then all of a sudden at the last hurdle, I was told I was high risk. And I was being told that I was likely that I was going to have to be induced, I was going to have to give birth on the consultant unit, and it was just like, oh my god, it was a lot to take in. So I had to change my diet, which was hard but absolutely fine, and I was also having growth scans because my bump was measuring big, and these growth scans showed that baby was measuring big as well. So all of these factors were put into consideration, and I was advised to be induced from 39 weeks onwards, because they didn't want me going to my full due date or any time afterwards, because they were worried that the baby would be too big for me to deliver. So this obviously is quite anxiety, gave me a lot of anxiety, kind of being told that your baby's going to potentially be too big for you. That was a lot to deal with, but I just tried to work really hard at trying to make myself calm and positive about things, and my induction was booked for 39 weeks and 3 days. I tried everything I could to try and induce natural labour, because I was so desperate to go into labour on my own. So my birth preferences, which I'd done up until this point, I wanted a water birth in the midwife-led unit. I wanted to have an active labour. I wanted everything to be as natural as possible. But obviously, as soon as I got that diabetic diagnosis, that all went out the window. And then I kind of changed my preferences to being more about the fact that we were doing hypnobirthing. Could I try and be as active as possible? And I wanted Henry to announce the gender, because we didn't know. So it was kind of like everything changed a couple of weeks beforehand. But then my actual birth preferences that I went into labour with, I feel like they were all pretty much accommodated by the midwives. The midwives that I had were absolutely amazing, and they did everything I could in like the circumstances to kind of grant my wishes. Like, for example, when I was induced and I had to have the hormone drip, you have to be monitored the whole time. Obviously you're hooked up to a drip, but because I said I wanted to try and be inactive, they like placed an exercise ball like right next to the monitor so that I could at least not just be on the bed for the whole time, which was really good of them. And yeah, they just tried. They were always very calm, and yeah, absolutely great. So I guess in a way, yes and no to my birth preferences. They did and they didn't kind of go to plan as such. So the next question is, what was your birth like? So right, so as I've just said, I was induced. So I was induced at 39+3. I was induced using, I think it's called the Foley balloon catheter. Google it. It's not ever where I imagined a balloon to ever go, but hey ho. So this was inserted, and this was left for 12 hours. I would say it kind of gave me kind of period type cramps and mini contractions almost. After probably about an hour of it being inserted, I did have to take some painkillers, and the lovely midwife who was on shift that night ran me a nice warm bath, which honestly helped so much. And between the painkillers and the bath, I was able to get a bit of sleep, so that was great. So yeah, so that was in for 12 hours. Then I was taken up to the delivery suite first thing the next morning. They took it out and I dilated, I think, to about 2 to 3 centimetres, so they were able to break my waters. So they broke my waters. We waited for anything to happen naturally. They give you about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Nothing did. So up went the hormone drip, which is oxytocin, well, synthetic oxytocin, which kickstarts your contractions, and normally you produce this naturally. So yeah, so I had the drip put up, and what they do is they just gradually increase it until you're having the set amount of contractions, which is 4 in 10 minutes, and I think they have to last a certain amount of time. And yeah, this is just gradually put up and put up. And to start with, I'd probably say within about half an hour to an hour, I started to get contractions. And to start with, they were absolutely fine. I mean, they were painful, but they were manageable. I just kind of breathed my way through them. I used all my hypnobirthing techniques. I was sitting on my exercise ball. But I still wasn't having, enough. So the drip was kind of put up and put up. And then things got a little bit intense. And I think for, I don't even know, an hour to 2 hours, I was having, I think they said about 6 contractions every 10 minutes, but they weren't lasting very long, which kind of annoyed me at the time, because I was just like, you don't think they're very long, you should try having them. And it was just a lot, because I felt like by the time one had finished, the next one was starting, so I wasn't able to kind of ever kind of catch my breath. And I kind of was very shocked at how painful I felt it. I felt it all in my back, which I wasn't expecting. I kind of was thinking it was going to be like strong period cramps, and I was kind of prepared for that pain. So the fact it was all kind of in my back, and it was just like, felt like a lot of pressure, was just a real shock. And I kind of struggled with how I coped with the pain, because I kind of went in thinking, I've got a really high pain threshold, I'm going to pop a couple of paracetamol and I'll be absolutely fine. But the fact that I just didn't know what to do with myself, the fact that I couldn't cope, there were a lot of tears, there was a lot of I don't want to do this, really kind of shocked me, because I'm not normally like that. So the fact that I did struggle so much was a bit of a shock to the system. So I had gas and air, which kind of took the edge off, but it wasn't enough, and I just got to the point where I was like, I can't carry on like this. Especially when I did an examination, I was only about 4 centimetres dilated, so I still had quite a while to go. So I had an epidural, and the relief I felt when that epidural started to sink in is just nothing else. It was just like, oh my god, thank god for that. So yes, I had the epidural, and that enabled me to have a bit of a doze, went to sleep for a couple of hours whilst my body did its thing. And yeah, 2 to 3 hours later I was fully dilated, and it was time to start pushing, which obviously great news. However, I pushed for 2 hours and we didn't make much progress, and by this point baby's heart rate was starting to get quite high. I developed a temperature, so they were slightly worried that we'd both developed an infection. So suddenly the room was like full of people, and a consultant came in and advised that we went down to theatre. So I was kind of told what the options were going to be. They were going to try and get the baby out with forceps first. If that didn't work, I'd have to have a C-section. And at this point, I just did not care. I was just like, I just want the baby out now. You know, I was obviously worried for their safety, and I was just tired. I didn't really, to be honest, at that point, I just did not care what they did to me. I was like, just want the baby out safe and sound. And I feel like that was the bit I was most calm, which is weird. So we got whisked off to theatre, and 3 pushes and help with the forceps later, out came our baby, and obviously little baby girl. And yeah, so my labour didn't go to plan, obviously, as you can tell. I was not expecting to end up in theatre. I really didn't want to have forceps. Like, me and Henry both said afterwards, that was the kind of one method that we really didn't want. But when you're in that situation, it's just a case of you kind of do what the consultant advises you, and you know, I just wanted the baby out safe and sound. So yeah, so it was pretty scary in places. I found the whole process quite traumatic, if I'm honest, and I came away feeling quite shell-shocked. But I feel like I'm starting to process it a bit better now. Like, I feel like I've skipped over a lot of things. And also my recovery was quite tough because of the forceps I had to have. I think it's called an episoptomy, which is basically they have to like make a little cut. And then I also had a 2nd degree tear, and I also had a bit of a blood loss as well. So recovery was really tough. I'm feeling a lot better now. In fact, I felt a lot better probably from about 10 days to 2 weeks onwards. It is amazing how your body heals, like, it's incredible. But I wasn't expecting to feel like I did. I honestly felt like a double-decker bus had just rammed into my nether regions over and over again. And I kind of thought I'd come out feeling a bit sore, a bit tired, but not too much of a shock. And I kind of thought that I'd be walking frank the next day and going about my normal kind of daily activities. So the fact that I was just completely floored was, yeah, a real shock. But I do feel like, yeah, I was really sore for the first week or so. But then after then I started to feel a little bit more human, and yeah, I just felt like things kind of got better from that point onwards. So the next question is, were you nervous to give birth, and if not, what helped you feel prepared? So going into the actual birth, I wasn't nervous. I was a little bit nervous when I was told I was going to be induced, because everything suddenly felt very real. Whilst I think if you go into labour spontaneously, it kind of just happens, but when you're being told this is the date you're going in to have your baby, it's a bit like, oh my goodness, that's a bit scary. But I just worked really hard to try and stay calm and kind of not really anxious going in, because I just knew that wasn't going to help things. So I did do a hypnobirthing course. We did it with a lovely lady. Her name is Birth Nerd. I'll pop her details down below. And the course was amazing, and we also, as part of the course, we got like affirmations and relaxation tracks. And I felt that listening to the affirmations and listening to the relaxation and meditation really helped to keep me calm and anxiety free in the lead up. So I just worked really hard on listening to them. We also had a few Zoom calls with her as well, which was really useful. So yeah, I feel like I was, sorry, I've yawned. I feel like going into it, I actually was pretty calm. And in fact, if anything, I was just excited, because it's like, by this point, I was just like, I'm so ready to have this baby. And it's like what you've been waiting for, isn't it, for almost 9 months. So yeah, I definitely did feel very calm, which is surprising, but I'm glad that I did go into it feeling nice and calm. The next question is, one thing you wish you'd known for labour. So I've kind of already covered this before, but I would just say I wish that I'd been kind of either a little bit more prepared for what labour is actually really like, and not just the lovely Instagram version that I had in my head. And also I kind of wish that I'd not gone in with such high expectations, because although I was quite calm about things and I was all very like, oh, it's birth preferences, I'm really easygoing, I did have a view of how I thought birth was going to be, and I had a view of what I thought I was going to be like. So like I said, when that didn't happen, I came away feeling like a total failure, and I feel like I just had too high expectations, and I shouldn't have gone in with that expectations, but I'm not going to make myself feel too bad because I'd never done it before. I didn't know what to expect, and I kind of thought that by looking up all the birth positive stories and not looking into anything too negative, you know, it did kind of help me feel quite calm into the lead up. But I don't know if that's kind of just a bit of a rose-tinted view to look on the world. Like, just because you've looked up something negative doesn't mean that something negative is going to happen. And I felt that was the view that I had. But yeah, I just kind of wish I hadn't gone in with such high expectations, and I feel like I would have maybe felt a bit better afterwards. Everything else though, I feel like, you know, you can prepare for labour. You can, obviously, part of our hypnobirthing course was all the info about labours and different labours, and we've done a lot of research, but you don't know how you're going to feel, you don't know how things are going to be like until you're in that moment. So I think it is quite hard to prepare. But yeah, if I can give anyone any advice, is like, just don't have any expectations and just go with the flow, and just kind of accept that things might not go the way that you think in your head. Or that you might cope differently to what you expect. So yeah, it's not too much of a shock then. So the next question is, what was the best items that you packed in your hospital bag? So I packed a lot of things with me, and I don't really think I used too much, especially during labour. But I did find that these things were probably the most useful. I've made like a little list. So having reusable straws, or having a bottle with a straw, and then stuff for your recovery was also very important. So I had incontinence pants, which are basically like adult nappies. They were really good for like the first couple of days when you're recovering. The spritz for your bits, which is like a spray which kind of helps to numb everything. That was really good. A peri bottle for when you're going to the toilet. Your own pillow, because it just makes you feel a little bit more comfortable and at home, and a long phone charger, because yeah, the plugs are up quite high, so it just means that you're able to kind of have your phone plugged in and you're still able to go on it, because when you're staying in hospital you're on your phone quite a lot, so it loses battery quite quickly. A variety of pyjamas. So I thought I was a bit mad because I did pack loads of different pyjamas, and I thought I'm overpacking, but I was really glad that I did, because I found that the different wards had different temperatures. So the induction ward was quite a normal temperature, but then the postnatal ward was really, really hot. So I was really glad that I had long and short pyjamas, because it just meant that I had a choice and I was able to be a lot more comfortable. I had some like slippers, which are kind of like a slider style, so I definitely recommend packing some slippers like that, because I had to wear compression socks, so they were just easy to slip on and off, and just some slippers that you're not bothered about like throwing away afterwards. Snacks, they were for the induction and then for afterwards. I wasn't actually able to eat during labour once I'd had the drip up, but yeah, they were really, really essential for like before and afterwards, because afterwards you're just starving. So I was very, very grateful to have loads of snacks with me. And then a makeup bag. So this was something that I thought I was packing and just being crazy, but I had a little bag of makeup with me, and this was just something that was really nice to have with me when I was staying afterwards, because it just meant that I could pop on a little bit of makeup and I just felt a little bit more like me and a little bit more human. And I know it's like just a really weird thing, but it just really, really helped me those couple of days afterwards. So yeah, I would recommend like putting a little makeup bag. You might not use it. I don't think I'd use mine, but it was one of the things that I really liked. And also having some like nice skincare as well. That was quite nice for the night I was induced, because I've got like a facial oil which just smells really, really nice and relaxing. So I think being able to just put that on after my bath, it made me feel quite chilled out and relaxed for like getting into bed. So yeah, I would definitely just bring stuff with you that's like little home comforts. And for me that was like makeup and skincare, so that worked for me. Also lip balm as well. I didn't find, lots of people said that gas and air makes your lips really dry. I did have a bit of lip balm during labour, but I don't think it made them really, really dry, but it was just good to have with me anyways. And then also a fan, and this was mainly for the postnatal ward, because like I said, the postnatal ward was so hot, so it was just good to have with you to cool you down. And I think I used it also a bit when I was in labour too, but I can't really remember, but it's just a very good thing to have with you. So someone has asked, what have been your newborn essentials in the first few weeks? So I've made a little list of things that we have found very useful these first few weeks, and I feel like I'm probably like forgetting something, but here we go. So we've got a next to me bedside crib. Feel like this is really useful because it's really nice that she's so close to us, and ours is open, so it means that I can see her, which I really like and find very reassuring. Lots of nappies. Newborn babies do fill a lot of nappies, so yeah, having a good supply of nappies is very essential, and wipes as well. A million muslin cloths. You can never have too many. We've got them dotted all around the house. They're constantly like in the wash. But yeah, just having lots of different rooms is, you basically just cannot ever have enough. Zip up sleep suits. Now these have been an absolute game changer for us, and I think going forwards all the sleep suits that I will buy her will probably be zip up ones, because they're just so much easier than having to faff about with poppers, especially when it's night time. So yeah, definitely get a zip up sleep suit. You will not regret it. We've got a snuggle bath, I think that's what it's called. We couldn't bath her until her cord fell off, but it's just been, I just think it's a really good bath because it's got a little seat so you can like sit her on it. I mean, I still do hold her at the same time, but it's just a really good design. I definitely would recommend it, rather than having, and also it means that you don't have to just bath them in the bathroom, which is quite nice. The Love to Dream swaddle sleep suit. So I did do a sponsored video with them before Christmas, and I am going to be working with them over the next couple of months, but this isn't sponsored, this bit at all. Genuinely, we found the zip up sleep suits to be really good, and she's definitely really like them. I think she quite likes it because her hands can be up like this, because this is how she sleeps, but I think she finds the swaddle very comforting, and we've been using it from basically day one. And yeah, I think she just finds it very comforting and soothing, which is great. And also it puts my mind at rest because she is all in the sleep suit, because I just get very anxious about like blankets, especially now that she's a little bit more active. So it just kind of, you just know that she's all kind of zipped up, which just puts my mind at rest a little bit. A room thermometer. So this was something that I bought off Amazon like one of the first nights that we had her, because I was a bit like, oh, we don't need a room thermometer, but then I feel like you just second guess everything. I wanted to make sure that the room was the right temperature for sleeping. So I got one of the grow eggs, and I think it's been really good. I just have it on the side. It lights up, so it's a bit of a night light, and you can just take a glance at it and see what the temperature is. So yeah, I feel like that's been quite a good buy. Okay, so I think I'm going to answer 2 questions which are very similar, and then I will leave it because this video is probably going to be super long, which is all about how am I getting on with breastfeeding and feeding her. So I am breastfeeding her, and I have been finding I do love it, but it's also very hard as well. And it was quite hard the first week because she had a tongue tie. So yeah, so things were very difficult, but I feel like we've kind of turned a real corner. But yeah, it's very challenging, it's very hard, it's very demanding, but I do also really enjoy doing it at the same time. So there we go. I hope that has answered a few questions that you may have had. I feel like I didn't answer too many questions, but they were quite like lengthy answers. But if anybody wants to like chat about anything, my DMs on Instagram are always open, and I'm always happy to kind of chat about things, because yeah, I feel like it's definitely a bit of a weird time, and sometimes you do feel quite alone, and it's nice to chat to other people who have been through it. So yeah, just DM me if you do want to chat, and I hope you're all doing really well. I will see you soon in my next video. I think it's time for a nappy change. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.